A very good evening to our viewers. Thank you for joining us tonight on the agenda. My name is Toivo Njebela, your host. Tonight on the platform, we are joined by Imms Mulunga. He is, or he was until recently, depending on what version you take, the managing director of our national oil company, Namcor. Of course, we know the developments and the headlines that have gone out in recent days. Him getting cleared in a disciplinary hearing, and then getting immediately fired, if you like, then very next day after he was cleared by that internal disciplinary hearing. Mr. Mulunga is here to set the record straight because a lot has been written about him, sometimes without his input. Imms, thank you very much for making time.
Thank you, Toivo. Good evening to you and your listeners.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Viewers.
Yeah, what viewers? Yes. I want you to walk us through your journey at Namcor since you joined to this point, so that we can have a proper traction of the events that unfolded, your time at the company, what you were able to achieve, and the difficulties and opportunities that you encountered there. Maybe if you can, for starters, tell us, when did you start at Namcor and what kind of state did you find the company?
Okay. So I joined Namcor on the 1st of September 2015. I joined from the Ministry of Mines and Energy, where I was the Petroleum Commissioner. I served for 12.5 years. So yeah, that's when I joined Namcor, and obviously I came with a clear game plan, I think, to basically increase Namcor's footprint in the downstream sector, because I think that's really where the opportunities for growth were, because obviously we didn't have any oil discoveries then. The money that we were making from data sales is really nominal. So the plan was really to come and increase the footprint in the downstream market. So we started off by rebranding the organization in 2017. When I got there at Namcor, there was already a strategy that was approved to go downstream, to build retail service stations. So we started doing that. We built the first 3. And then obviously we build on a yearly basis, we build even more. Yeah, at the same time, government was also constructing a strategic storage facility in Wolfish Bay. So we thought to leverage on that, obviously to increase our market share and compete with these established international marketing companies.
Wonderful. It's interesting because yeah, okay, so that is that. But prior to you taking over Namcor, there were already a lot of headlines about how the company was struggling in some areas of business. In what state would you say you found the company when you took over, revenue-wise, bottom line, and just operational efficiency?
Yeah. I mean, Namcor had its fair share of troubles even before I got there. I mean, the current MD that was there before he was appointed, I think there was like 3 different acting MDs. So the company was really in turmoil. Namcor wasn't really as known as it is now. The revenues that it was making really were barely over 750 million Namibian dollars. So it was a relatively small company that's unknown. The relationships really within the company were not that great between management and the board. There was always infighting. So these things that are happening at Namcor now, I mean, they've been there for many years.
Because I remember, of course, but that was way before you came in, when the company had, I think, this big Glencore debt that government has to step in to pay and whatnot. So, as your obviously, when you come into an entity like that and having its fair share of troubles, one of your key duties from the onset is to sort of tackle some of that. You spoke about low revenues, for example. How did you intervene to sort of get the company on a particular trajectory?
Yeah, as I said, we came in with a clear game plan. Because I knew where the sort of opportunities for growth were, where we can make money and start competing. Because there was no point being a national oil company and you're just there on the upstream side while you actually part of your mandate is actually to also do downstream activities. So, because I thought, because of that mandate, no, let's do more. Let's be a recognizable brand. Let's compete in the market. Although we are state-owned, it doesn't mean because you are state-owned now you can't participate in activities that the private sector is participating in. So we took a bold decision. We entered the market. Yeah, we did a lot of things. As I said, we rebranded in 2017. And that really gave us a sort of jump start to get into the industry. And I think that was, the brand was very, very well received by the market.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about upstream, that mandate, technically, what does it entail for those who do not understand the technicalities?
Yeah, I mean, upstream obviously refers to the exploration and production of oil. Traditionally, that's been our mandate. I think that's why Namcor was created in the first place, and that's where we had our first foray into the petroleum sector. Basically, in the beginning, advising the government when it comes to oil and gas exploration, and so on, until we started evolving into obviously the downstream space. Started data sales and so on, and Namcor really grew, evolved into a true national oil company that it is today.
Yeah. There were a lot of questions when you started venturing into the downstream market. People saying that I don't know why some people try to sort of say you are a regulator, but definitely you are not. I don't see it that way. But I suppose because you are a state-owned entity and competing in that space with the private sector, there were these misgivings about that strategy, that it's unfair and whatnot. And then Cabinet started discussing whether Namcor, I think a year ago there were conversations at Cabinet level to say that the company must actually quit that after so much investment that you've already made. What did you make of those kind of talks at the time?
Yeah, I mean, I think those talks were really unfair, and I just believe we deserved more support from our own government, because this is a government-owned company. It's not a private company, so your parent actually need to support you. Yes, if your parent happened to be the regulator as well. But we are, we are a commercial company. So we expected to obviously receive more support. Yes, I mean, people have their own perceptions. But as a commercial entity, you can't just be doing regulatory work, because where are you going to get your money from? And by doing what we did, I think we proved the people wrong. I mean, we constructed service stations. We started even in the commercial department where we started, taking up like mines like Husab mine, where we start supplying them, and many other commercial construction companies and governments and so on. So our revenue really increased, and we started making a lot of money. And at some point, at the height of our activities, we actually grew from a revenue of say 750 million to 8 billion Namibian dollars at some point, but obviously that has come down since I left. But that's a kind of of growth that we've managed to achieve.
So how much support did you enjoy from the shareholder? Because part of the reason why some SOEs are struggling and whatnot, they feel that they're not adequately subsidized or capitalized. In the Namcor's case, during your time, what would you say was the situation?
And I believe we could have gotten more support from government. Unfortunately, due to a myriad of reasons, we never got the support I think that we deserved from all of some of the ministers that I think were our shareholder ministers. We always had to struggle. It was always a struggle to try and put across our point, to put across our strategy. Yes, we succeeded amongst those challenges, obviously. But I just feel we could have received more support, especially when it's your own company, your own state-owned company. I don't understand why ministers really don't give us or the state-owned companies the necessary support that they deserve. Because then it's always, I don't know whether it's jealousy sometimes or whether it is a thing of, yeah, we're in politics, these guys get more money for nothing. There's always those kind of things. So it was not an easy journey. It's always been difficult.
Yeah. Despite those revenues, Mr. Mulunga, that you spoke about, there were some articles some months ago about huge amounts of money that had to be paid to suppliers of Namcor, debts, creditors, essentially, that the company owed. How was those accrued, especially when you say that so much money was also being made?
I think just like with the Glencore situation, because Namcor obviously stands in a very unique position as a state-owned company, the shareholder being the state, but it also gets regulated by the state, So that's a unique situation that Namcor finds itself. So we have gone to the government. I mean, there was a stage where we were really making good money and we didn't have any issues. But I think during the time of when the Ukraine-Russia war started, when the market really turned against us, and we felt that the BFP pricing arrangement wasn't really good, the whole industry suffered a lot of losses, not only Namcor, but all the other international marketing companies that operate here made huge losses. So we've been going to government to ask them, please help us, increase our margins because we're not making money. Now, for the other international marketing companies that could actually absorb some of these losses, because obviously they have a long-term game, a long-term viewpoint. So we did the same. We went to obviously our shareholder, who happened to be the regulator, to say, please help us. We're making a lot of losses here. But that mostly fell on deaf ears until much later, So yes, one can argue that maybe we could have done more here and there, but I think the biggest problem was that the market turned against us, and we did not really receive the necessary support from our shareholder that everybody got, and it caught up with us at some point, But we were making good money, I think, in the beginning until that situation arose.
What role did Namcor play in? Because oil got discovered eventually by foreign companies, and there's this idea that, of course, you are the vehicle for the nation to acquire equity stakes there and whatnot. What can you tell us about what you did as a company to venture into some of those discoveries?
Yeah, so Namcor's role has traditionally been to be the custodian of the data that international companies come and buy and use during the exploration efforts. So I think we've played that role very well. We are also fortunate enough to have had a minister, I think it was Minister Erking in Tina, who, when he was minister, actually almost made a declaration to say that from now on, every license that will be issued in Namibia, Namcor has to have a 10% stake. So since then, we've been enjoying those 10% stakes, and we even went further, evolved into situations where we had more than 10%. We had licenses where we had 20%, for example, where we had 50%, or where we had 67%. because we felt Namcor was a national oil company. They need to do more, get into exploration themselves, and then farm out or sell some of those equities for profit. And I think we did also that very, very successfully.
What was the strategy around the recon, you reducing your equity there?
Yeah, so I think that was also another strategic move to try and get some more revenues out of the upstream sector, because most of Namcor's revenues, is really coming from the downstream sector. But I think that was a smart move to try and get some cash in shares by selling. I think it was 5% of our 10% that we had, which was a very good move. But again, it's one of those transactions that attracted a lot of attention from politicians, from parliamentarians, and it just became difficult. And the transaction, I think, never took off.
Okay.
But it would have been a great opportunity for Namcor to have made more money. Yeah, that was the whole idea around it.
Okay. Let's get into the issues, because until early 2023 or so, there was really excitement around the brand. The company is doing very well. Oil discoveries are being made, and we were looking forward to being and I think one of the things that you try to do from an outsider's point of view, when I see things, you spoke about the recon attempt to raise funds for the entity, and I suppose the Angolan oil deal was also under the same principle, to say, let's start venturing into certain opportunities that exist. But maybe before we go to the Angolan deal, at what point did the relationship between you and the board, the previous board of Namcor, started to look shaky? Eventually, of course, we'll talk about the whole subsequent events, but at what point did you start feeling that maybe things are not going very well here?
Yeah. Well, I can say, Toivo, that I think things have always been difficult for me at Namcor since the beginning. And I don't know whether you remember that even me joining Namcor in 2015, I came out first in the interview, and then, apparently when things went sent to cabinet, I came second. It was only really during when the president said, no, but, give the man that deserved the job, that came first in the interview. So it's always been like that. And every other year in Namcor, I've always gone through challenges with boards, or with the ministers, so it's something that didn't just start with the previous board.
Are you a difficult man? Are you a man that is hard to work with?
I don't think so. I mean, those that know me, I'm probably the opposite. I think I'm an easygoing person, easy to work with. But if you enter a position like managing director of a national oil company, and you already have people that didn't want you there from the start, obviously they were going to give you problems for your entire duration. So I mean, I even remember that when I got my second renewal of my contract, even that was a difficult conversation. It was a big battle. So it's always been a big battle. I think there was even talks of, maybe let's give him 2.5 years, and then after 2.5 years, maybe we can let him go. And I think these troubles started exactly 2.5 years into my second term. And I believe there's always been people with knives out for me. And that's why it resulted in these events that basically happened.
Yeah. So now into the deal with Sonangol. What we read in the papers as outsiders again is Namcor and its other two partners created Sungara as a joint venture to then invest into the Angolan oil market, acquiring an equity stake in one of the oil blocks there. And my understanding is that the board had approved the principle of that deal. And then, so you had approval from the board to say, yes, we must venture into that. Then there was one of your partners, one of the JV partners, who didn't have the capital ready. And Namcor, at your instruction, then bailed out that company by paying on their behalf into Sungara. And the idea, as I understood it, was to say either, I mean, of course, the principle was that they will pay you back, and failure of that would then result into you acquiring also what would have been their equity into that.
That's correct.
If you can walk us into the trajectory of events that transpired up until the point of payment.
Okay. So maybe just to start at the beginning, the whole idea and reasoning for the Angolan transaction was that for Namcor to grow into a size that it wants to be. And at that time when we entered this transaction, there wasn't any oil discovery. So we were asking ourselves, how is Namcor going to make money until hopefully one day there's a discovery? So we thought, you know, there's this opportunity. I think Sonangol went out on tender. In fact, I think we started off in Nigeria first, where we didn't. No, it was actually in Angola on another transaction where we didn't succeed. And then we found these partners, Sequa and Petrolog, who were already busy with the transaction, and we happened to join them. And it was a very, very, very good transaction, very good opportunity where you're actually buying a producing asset. Something that is generating cash already, and that can make you a lot of money over time. And we approached the board, we explained the whole transaction, and the board liked it, the transaction was approved. But with these kind of things, these kind of transactions, you can not always be sure what can happen, and you know, you can never gauge what can actually transpire. So maybe one of these partners wasn't really a partner that I would have wanted to work with had I known maybe who they are, maybe some of the backgrounds. So they didn't pay their own due. So, you know, we thought, because I mean, I had the mandate, and I think the bone of contention between me and the board was whether I had any authority to make those kind of decisions. And I think the recent judgment actually said I did have the authority, because I had a board resolution to try and do things to make sure to get the transaction done. And I did that. We helped them to, well, in fact, the money that we put aside was there to cover the entire deposit that was due to Sonangol. And had we not paid that deposit, the entirety of that deposit, the transaction would have been in jeopardy. So that is what we did. And eventually this company did pay back the money. So, and you know, and the as they promised, and the Angolans received the money, and the deposit was paid. The transaction is still continuing. So I really don't understand what the fuss is about. And that's why the independent chairperson also saw that, no, I mean, the MD didn't do anything to prejudice Namcor. And this is the same funding that was given by the ACC. So in fact, I mean, I really went out of my way to save the transaction. And the transaction is still ongoing. And the transaction has even become bigger. I mean, instead of, I think, 1,000 barrels per day production, it's, no, in fact, 10,000 barrels per day production is probably going to end up at, you know, 25,000 barrels of oil production. And Namcor, I believe, has even a bigger stake now. So I think it's still a very, very excellent transaction that Namcor went into. And the nice thing about that transaction, it will make Namcor at least to make some revenues while waiting for the revenues coming from production, when production starts, because those revenues will probably only happen in 10 years from now. So what will Namcor do in the meantime? So the idea was that while waiting for those revenues from production, at least there's some revenues to pay for Namcor's the amount of people that are there now, because otherwise, without that, if that transaction obviously for one or the other reason doesn't proceed, Namcor is going to be in serious trouble.
The last question on that before we go for a short break, Imms. The last question on that before we go for a short break, Imms. The last question on that before we go for a short break, Imms. When ACC cleared you, because I remember you were summoned and the directors were summoned, everybody gave their version of what transpired. And ACC came out with a report saying actually almost what you're saying, that you sort of saved the country in that regard. The disciplinary hearing that followed internally at Namcor against you in the same issue, did it come afterwards, or was it running concurrent? It started at the same time, because I'm just wondering whether you were cleared by ACC and then the company still decided we must charge him, or maybe the processes were running together and therefore when we were cleared by ACC they couldn't stop the other one.
Now, I can't remember exactly which started when, but I believe that after the ACC had given their verdict, I think the board had an opportunity to say, well, the ACC has found him, cleared him, so let's not proceed with this. Because I don't understand if the ACC comes out and there's no criminal elements, what the people expected to find through a disciplinary hearing. Because if you haven't committed a crime, you haven't committed a crime. You can go to however many institutions that you want. So, yeah, that was, I still don't understand why I think really that disciplinary hearing was necessary. I mean, ended up obviously spending lots of money on legal fees and so on, coming to the same conclusion that was already given by the ACC.
Absolutely. We go for a very short break and then return with Imms Mulunga.
Neo Paints has established a 67-year Namibian legacy, creating personalized paint solutions that blend quality and innovation for the Namibian people. We pride ourselves in being a 100% Namibian-owned company, investing in our country and our people by employing and empowering true Namibians. With every brushstroke, Neo Paints commits to our quality guarantee and always delivering a coat of excellence. At Neo Paints, we always stay true to our country. We are as Namibian as you.
We continue our conversation with Imms Mulunga on the agenda. What did you make of your suspension in April last year? What did you expect it? Is it something that caught you completely off guard? Because I remember the board met Minister Shimi very late on a particular day, and news filtered through to the media immediately that you've been suspended.
Yeah, it did catch me a bit off guard. I didn't expect it. But again, as I said, it looks like, there's been some maybe background discussions already about, suspending me. Because it's interesting enough, the charges that I was suspended on, I mean, I have not been found guilty on any one of them. In fact, they never went through into the disciplinary hearing. The disciplinary hearing was basically about the Angolan transaction. Yeah, so it was not an easy experience, obviously, to undergo. But so it was, and I was confident that I would be cleared. That's why I wasn't really worried. So I said, okay, let me face my suspension and go through the disciplinary process, which was a fair process. I think that's how things should be done. Somebody should be innocent until proven guilty. Yeah. So I applaud Namcor for doing going through a transparent, fair process. And then I went through the disciplinary hearing, and I was subsequently found not guilty.
Yeah. One thing that I want to I just want you to state the record clear on this issue, because people have thrown your name into that issue from time to time, especially on social media, and I think it's important for you to address that issue for me. There was an issue where one of your board chairperson allegedly was found, drugs were found in her car, and she was arrested, and she appeared in court, and she enjoyed a lot of support from both line ministers. Minister Shimi writing to the police asking she must be protected. Minister Tomalwendo attending her court appearance, very unprecedented at the time. And people were saying, no, this whole drug thing is part of the bigger fights at Namcor, and that the MD had something to do with it. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, Toivo, I mean, those that know me, and I think even the former board chairperson herself, know that I'm not the person capable of doing something like that. So I didn't have any hand in it. I didn't know that something like that was happening. So if it could well be that maybe somebody that thought they were going to do me a favor did something like that, I don't know. I don't know really what transpired there. But of course it was odd that these things happened sort of on the same day that we were supposed to have a board meeting. And whoever might have done something like that, if it was somebody else, thought they were going to do me a favor, but they did me a very big disservice, because obviously the impression was that I was behind this thing. But I would never, not because of a Namcor job, to try and do something like that to somebody. Not at all. It's just not who I am, and I would never do something like that.
Absolutely. The one thing that we then found odd is that a day after you were cleared by the disciplinary hearing chaired by a reputable former judge of appeal in the Supreme Court, I believe, Judge Maritz, and we, Namibian Sun, were the first ones to get hold of that verdict. I will not tell you how I got it, but we broke the news that you were cleared.
Yes,
that was on a Thursday morning. You were cleared the previous day, on Wednesday, last week, and then on Thursday morning I got hold of that information. I posted it, I broke the news, and in the evening, as I was about to, or evening of Thursday, done with my Friday's newspaper, about to leave, I see Windhoek Observer saying that you've been dismissed. I didn't take it serious, because I felt like, how? The man has been cleared yesterday, how could he be dismissed today? And then I tried calling Minister Shimi. He referred me to the board, and then which is correct. And then I called the board chairperson. She did not pick up. And I texted her, is it true that the MD has been fired, on what grounds, and stuff like that. And then moments later, a statement came through saying your contract has been terminated. It was a very strange situation, and I had to change my front page for Friday's paper 3 times that evening, because there were just so many things happening. Because our lead story originally was that you've been cleared, and then those late developments came. First and foremost, this new board, has it met you to say, maybe introduce themselves to you to say, look, we are the new board, you are still innocent until proven otherwise, we will maintain your suspension or whatever. Did they speak to you?
No. We never had that opportunity to meet with the new board and to have those type of discussions, not at all.
So the first communication, what was the first ever communication you got from this new board?
Yeah, it was that termination letter. That was the first ever communication with the new board.
Yeah. What did you make of being fired without being charged for the grounds on which you were fired?
Yeah, I mean, it was a shocking thing to learn. I was aware that I think the Namcor lawyers, tried to attempt something like that with the previous board, and obviously that didn't work because I think people realize that, you know, you can't do something like that. It's an illegal process. I mean, in a country that is ruled by a rule of law, it's shocking actually for something like that to happen. So yeah, that's why, I mean, everybody was shocked. I was equally shocked that you can actually just go and just terminate somebody's employment contract without following a process. Because I was saying earlier that Namcor did well with the Angolan transaction actually by following a process. So if they feel that they had such a strong case, they should have done the same. You know, because there was a lot of hula baloo about the Angolan transaction. I was in the media all over. I mean, it almost created the impression that I was guilty. So again, with these new charges, of course, people are under the impression that I'm guilty of something, but why don't you give me an opportunity to be heard and to state my case? Because, I mean, as a managing director, as an accounting officer, I just don't wake up and go and do a deal for myself. Obviously, I rely on executives who prepare these things, and I ask questions before I sign off certain things. And I don't believe that I did anything wrong specifically. Yes, you can argue that maybe here and there people might have forgotten to do certain things or to report certain things to the board and whatever. But, you know, and the funny thing is the PwC investigated the same transactions, or many other transactions, including this one. And they didn't find anything of a criminal nature to say that the MD or whoever was, you know, did something fraudulent or something like that. But yeah, as I said, yeah, maybe you can do an internal disciplinary hearing, but I didn't see it as a matter of where you can actually just go and dismiss somebody. I mean, give me a fair chance.
There was a very damning article in Namibian Sun this week about that, which reveals, we spoke to some sources and they said to us that the Namcor lawyers in this whole thing, I think Raymond Heathcote and Clive Kavenji, sought some sort of legal advice or whatever from a labor consultant or labor expert, who then suggested that the NECON deal was so damning that Imms Mulunga will be found guilty and be fired. So let's not even waste time going through the process of disciplinary hearing, because the man will be found guilty and be fired. The previous board, like you stated, rejected that, according to our article. And once that board left, the same lawyers came to the new board and made the same proposition. And this board ran with it. What I found interesting is that the new board was attending some strategic event of the company, I think with management out of town, very far away. And I think when our article came out, our breaking news came out that morning that you had been cleared the previous day. I don't know whether the board was not informed or whatever. Then they left that strategic meeting, met with Minister Shimi. I'm not privy to what was discussed in detail, but I know that you came up in that conversation. And I don't know whether with the blessing or without the blessing of the minister, but I would be a devil's advocate here to say that there's no way that you could, as a board, meet the minister and come out with such a huge decision without having some sort of consent from the line minister. What people have argued is to say, even if someone in Namibia record themselves killing people, and sorry for the graphic example, go around killing people while filming themselves on Facebook, for example, so the evidence is clear and you even confirm later that yes, indeed, I shot those people dead, I hated them or whatever. There's no law that says, oh, since he admitted and there's enough evidence, let's just lock him up. You still have to go through that process. So even in this case, that is the argument to say, because we are setting a very dangerous precedent. I couldn't care less personally whether Imms Mulunga is guilty or not. That is his own cross to carry. But we are a country of laws and rules, and I thought you should have been just be taken through another disciplinary hearing. In fact, people were saying if they didn't want you to come back to work after you were cleared, maybe they should have just suspended you on the new charges.
That would have been an option. Continue the suspension on the new charges, and then prepare for a new disciplinary hearing. Because as I said, it's unheard of. I mean, everybody is shocked that, you know, the Namcor board actually got away with this. And this thing is challengeable. As much as I probably don't have, because people probably think that I have an interest or want to go back to Namcor, that's not really my interest, but to be dismissed in that fashion, as you said, it's creating a dangerous precedent, not only for people working in Namcor, but elsewhere. If you realize that you can actually just be fired without there being a process, I mean, this is going to be very, very dangerous for executives in state companies. So they therefore have to challenge this decision, and hopefully the Namcor board, they reconsider their decision. You see, a friend of mine was telling me the other day that, I mean, it would have been, if the people really don't want me there, with a year contract left, and after having served Namcor diligently, being a loyal servant of Namcor for 9 years, to call me in and say, no, listen, Imms, we don't believe that you should come back to work. You have a year remaining on your contract. Let's pay you out, and then we part ways amicably. That would have been beautiful, but it sort of appears that because these guys were defeated, they were so confident that they were going to nail me on the Angolan transaction, and they failed. Now all of a sudden they have to prove a point. They have to, they have to dismiss me, even without following a process. And that is, you can't do that. I mean, even non-lawyers, non-legal people can see that obviously this is not how you do things.
Just pull your thing just a little bit. Just pull it up a little bit. Okay. And just put it under.
Okay.
So then when you were cleared just the previous day, what was going through your mind in terms of the way forward? Did you intend to show up at work? Did you wait to hear from the board to say, now I've been cleared, what is the way forward? Did you intend to initiate, for example, what you just said, the conversation around being paid out? Maybe the environment became a bit too toxic. What did you intend to do?
I mean, what I was expecting to happen is for the board to call me in, and to, if they have received whatever instructions that I shouldn't come back to work, to just have a word with me to say, Imms, this is the situation. You have a year left on your contract. We don't believe as a new board we would want to continue with you. So this is what we're proposing we do. We get into a settlement, we shake hands, and then we go our separate ways. Everybody goes with dignity. But this thing of wanting to, saying that I'm fired, I mean, you're playing with my future, career prospects and things like that. And that's why I cannot obviously allow this thing to just continue like that. That's why I'm going to challenge it.
You're going to challenge it?
Yeah.
Okay. What can you tell us about this Enacon issue? What length can you tell us about what transpired in this thing? Because we read in the papers that you wanted to, because it sounded as if it was really, again, a reasonable thing, but something went wrong with one client refusing to agree to these terms or something like that. And then what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, you see, it's standard practice in the industry that if you want to capture a customer or you want to capture certain volumes or sales, you would, you would purchase assets, or you would invest into assets where you put your own money. Those assets become yours, and then you will then continue supplying into those assets, and you have a supply contract then with somebody for X number of years, you say over 10 years, because I've supplied you with these assets, I bought them from you, now you are bound to buy a product from me for that period. And this happens all the time. I mean, we did the same thing when we took over the Husap mine. The assets that were there belonged to, I think, Engine. Then we had to spend, I think it was 63 million or so to buy those assets over so that they become Namcor. And then we started supplying the mine. So it was something similar here because that specific company, Enacon, had a supply contract with Defence for, I think, 9 or 10 years. And they had to supply them. And as far as we're concerned, or they told us that, no, these assets belong to us, you can buy them, and then you will be our sole supplier of petroleum products. And that happens all the time, and we do that, all the time. So my executives obviously prepared all the documentation, the legal department looked through it, everything was okay. But obviously in the eyes of the board, maybe in the lawyers, they feel that we did something untoward. They called it a sham. I don't know why they do that, but I mean, again, there should have been an opportunity, like PwC investigated, right? And they got their findings, and the findings were never that, this was something fraudulent or it was a sham. With all those kind of things, yes, you could have done something better here and there, but again, there was no intentions of fraud or anything like that on my part or on the part of my executives, as far as I know. Unfortunately, when I got suspended, the relationship between Enercon and Namcor, I think, went south. I think Namcor stopped supplying the company, and I think it became probably difficult for the company to continue paying back. I think that's my understanding. That's why things went from bad to worse. But the intention was never to defraud Namcor or to, again, it was for business development activities to try and lock in a customer, to supply them almost like 1 million liters per month, going to Defence. So as far as I'm concerned, it was not a very bad deal at all. And I would have really appreciated for that to have been an independent process to find me guilty on something like that, and recommend for dismissal. Not just, a legal opinion by a lawyer, where you sort of proceed to lead evidence in support of those charges, where you proceed to analyze your own distorted narrative, and where you proceed to make your own findings and enforce, that into a dismissal. I mean, it's unheard of. Yeah.
Perhaps the final question then to you, Imms, is what would you say is your leadership style? I'm asking this because are you someone who rely a lot on your executives? Do you overtrust them? I'm asking this because Minister Shimi was on this platform not too long ago, and he spoke about, I think, 8 very senior managers, 8 or so, who are currently on suspension. I don't know whether you suspended them as MD or they were doing things that you didn't see, and then the board, for example, sanctioned those suspensions. What went wrong to the extent that so many people got suspended, including the MD?
Yeah, well, I think to answer one of your questions, I didn't suspend them. But you see, perspective always creates perception, right? So if there is a perception from whether it's the board or the ministers that the MD has done something wrong, or there's been foul play or whatever, that is what people will see. And they to go and dig and to try and suspend, whoever it is, maybe that was seen to be close to the MD or that was part of a particular transaction. But yeah, I mean, it's not a good thing to have so many executives suspended, because the question is, how do you run a company then? And you say the thing is, suspensions also are not supposed to be taking longer than 4 months according to the policies of Namcor. But I mean, like my own suspension was 15 months. So again, it's one of those things that happen that shouldn't happen. But yeah, my leadership style is, yes, of course, being an MD, I'm a jack of all trades. I'm not a specialist in all the areas, so I have to rely obviously on my executives. But I just don't sign off something that comes to me. Obviously, check and I ask questions and things like that. But again, it doesn't mean if somebody is suspended, they are wrong. Yeah. You know, that's because people think that somebody gets suspended and they are automatically guilty. No. Yeah. I mean, most of these people will probably be found not guilty. Yeah. Just like I was found not guilty in this transaction, I would have probably been found not guilty also if this thing had gone to a fair disciplinary process. Yeah. Because it wasn't the first time that there would have been an investigation. PwC did make an investigation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Finally now. Is this the end of Imms Mulunga? We have the people that have pursued Imms Mulunga for so long succeeded in killing the brand that is Imms Mulunga, or are we going to see the resurrection of Imms Mulunga into the future?
Yeah, well, you will see Imms Mulunga resurrecting, obviously not in Namcor. I think the Namcor journey has come to an end. There's no doubt about that. I mean, even if take this matter for review and go to the High Court, I don't think I have an interest to go back to Namcor. But as I have narrated, I think Namcor is what it is today because of my leadership. And I'll take that leadership somewhere else, and I will continue to be the leader that I am, and probably emerge from this experience bigger and stronger for sure.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
That is Imms Mulunga, former MD of Namcor, telling us what many have waited to hear about his time at the company and his version of events that transpired there recently. Thank you for watching.